Hi, and welcome to our video review session this week with No Bones About It Puppy Day School. I'm going to be talking to you today about recall, teaching your puppy to come when called. And excuse me, come here. Sir. Maybe I'll just take control of this bowl. Come here. Thank you. Leo. Thank you. Wait your turn. Yes. Good job. Leo, wait your turn. Good job. Good. So anytime I'm working or filming, I'm always trying to get these guys to practice self-control. Don't jump on me. Don't try to steal the food from the bowl. Those are all things that are lifelong skills. Control. I control the resources. You offer me behaviors that I like, and then you get this thing you want. Good life skills. So a little bit different this week. I am going to be doing a series of video clips of your puppies doing kind of like review and practice of kind of a culmination of everything we've been working up to this point, because here's what I find. I find once we get like into weeks 4 and 5 that come here, that personally, but also really more so for my clients, is that they feel a little bit overwhelmed. Each week I'm giving you new things to work on. And you know, in the first couple weeks, it's like it's not that big a deal. It's like 1 or 2 things. And then all of a sudden, you know, by weeks 4 and 5, you feel a little bit like, oh my God, I don't know. I have limited time to reinforce these skills. And again, my job is to teach them. Your job is to reinforce them and transfer the value so the dog understands that working for you is the same thing as working for me. So so I find that people start to feel a little bit overwhelmed as to what they should be working on. So I'm going to do a video today for you that talks about recall do's and don'ts, but I'm not going to ask you to start practicing it, but I want you to hear about kind of like all the, I'm sorry, was I not doling out treats for you fast enough? Touch? Thank you. So that you can start implementing some of these things, because I guarantee there's things that you are doing right now that I'm going to suggest that you don't do where recall, having your puppy come to you, is involved. But I really want you to just watch your individual review videos for, you know, practice techniques and tips. So my suggestion is spend the time working on the things that you think are most valuable to you. I.e., I don't do a lot of leash walking with my dog. Personally, I never have. Like on leash walking. We go up on our trail, we're off leash. So, you know, yes, he can walk nicely on a leash, but it's not something that I care a lot about because I don't go for walks in my neighborhood. You know, if you know, obviously Louis lives in the city. He needs to be really good at walking on a leash. If you walk around downtown in Mill Valley a lot, or you know, wherever you happen to live, you that might be really important to you. But for me, spending time working on off-leash recall was the most important because I'm up on a trail. I spend a lot of time working on leave it because I'm on a trail. I don't want my dog picking up junk, you know, poop and all kinds of disgustingness on a trail all the time. So I tend to spend time really focusing in and honing in and perfecting the skills that I find most valuable in my everyday life. Not to say that we won't get to the other ones, but for right now, when you're sort of feeling maybe perhaps a little bit overwhelmed with what to choose to work on, just pick 1 or 2 things every week, okay? All right, so let's talk about Poppy. There must be something buried in there. Poppy! Yes. Good job. let's talk about our do's and don'ts for the recall. And again, whenever I refer to recall, I'm referring to teaching your puppy to come when called. The first one is that for right now, you are be really, really careful about using your word come. I would suggest that you only use it in cases where your dog is already moving towards you, or you are almost 90 to 100% certain that they are going to respond correctly to that cue. We get our puppies, and from day one, people start saying come, and that puppy is, they are so distracted, they're so, not in tune to listening and responding to your voice, and so that cue becomes very watered down. It becomes, sometimes we call it poisoned, where meaning it just doesn't hold a lot of value. And so I'll get people that will say things to me like, oh, hey, Allie, my puppy will only come to me when I use the word cookie. And my response is, you've trained a recall, but your recall cue is cookie, meaning that dog learned very quickly that whenever they heard that word, something of great value was going to happen for them. But you weren't so good about doing that when you would say come. The consistency wasn't always there. So my recommendation would be that if you find that your dog is already ambivalent or kind of wishy-washy about that word come, don't use that word. Let's pick a new recall word. Let's start fresh where you are adding the utmost value every time. It could be here, it could be, come close, it could be cookie. I mean, I like calling my dog with the word cookie. I think it's great. All right, so we've established that we only want to use our recall word for instances where we know we're going to get the correct response. We've established that if we have a word that we don't really love, or we don't think the puppy sees value in, we're gonna switch it up a little bit. Number two is that, or 3 or 4, wherever we are, is that we are only going to use our recall word if the end result is something that's amazing for your puppy. So again, this is in the learning phase until we have what we call that conditioned response, where your puppy doesn't weigh its options, where they go, should I or shouldn't I? Okay, wow, things are a little wild right here. They're gonna get out of control. So what does that mean? That means if your dog loves playing out in the yard, and you need to even just bring them inside, don't use a recall word right now. Don't say come. They love being outside. You put them inside. End result, I don't care if you give them a handful of delicious cookies at that point. Doesn't matter. The end result isn't great for your dog. You need to go out and do some errands. You're going to put your puppy in the crate. Don't use your recall word and put him in the crate. No good. So what I do is I try to think about 2 or 3 steps later, meaning not just the puppy comes in and they get something delicious. We're going to get to that in a second. But what is the end result for that puppy? 2 or 3 minutes after. It should all be something that that dog construes as really positive and really, really good. That brings me to my next point. Fabulous rewards get fabulous recalls. So I like to pick something my dog thinks is absolutely amazing, and they don't get it for anything else except for when I'm practicing my recall. Maybe that means I've got leftover salmon that I keep in the fridge, and when I'm going to work on, come, I've got that ready for me. If my dog is a toy dog, I'm going to find their favorite stuffy, and the only time they ever see that is when they're practicing recall. When I work with a bird dog, a dog that naturally just loves, has a lot of prey drive, I put you can order these from any, Cabela's or anything like that, bird wings that I put on a string, and I use them to get the dog to chase them around when we practice recall, because that is like for them just heaven. So Think about finding one or two or three things that your dog absolutely goes bonkers for, and you only use those, or the dog only gets to see those things when we're practicing the recall. So the next point is that when you are practicing your recall, and again, we're going to do demos of this next week, but I just want you to start getting all these things, in your brain, the kind of the do's and don'ts. And if you're making some of these mistakes already, then you can start working on correcting them. But think about your recall. It is your name game. You cannot spend enough time getting your puppy perfect at name game, because you're always going to have more distractions. You're always going to have things that are going on. Louie! Yes! So oh, hello, your name's not Louie, but thank you for responding to that. So I'm always working on name game and trying to build the value for that, because that's the way you start recall. Your dog's name, you get that eye contact, and once you have that eye contact, and quite frankly, if we've been really honing in and working on name game, your dog hears your name, they're already starting to move towards you. And all you're doing is adding a recall word. So think about it, it's just like name game, except for you're adding your recall word once you get the eye contact. Let's say you say your puppy's name, they don't turn and look at you. Game over. You're not going to add your recall word. That goes back to our one of our pointers, which was, if you don't think your dog's going to come, don't use your recall word. You only get to say it one time. So what does that mean? Let's say you say your puppy's name and you add the word come, and all of a sudden there's a leaf, there's a butterfly, there's something that you get distracted by. Then what you're going to do is you're not going to keep repeating your recall word. We want once and only once. But you can be a cheerleader, is what I say. You can then clap your hands. Pop, pop, pop. You hear us saying this all the time. The pop, 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 pop. Yes, I love the pop-ups. So you can use clapping. You can use kissy noises. Start running in the opposite direction. We're going to talk about that when you see our videos for practicing ways to practice recall. Those are things you can do to get your puppy to finish the recall once you've used your recall word. And then that brings us kind of to our last point, which is that if let's say you need to get your puppy to come to you, and they're doing something really awesome, but you've got to leave. Okay, so 5 minutes ago I said don't call your puppy if the end result is bad. Okay, but you need to get your puppy, all right? There's a million ways you can do that. Okay, again, I would not use their name because I'm building value for name game. I would go and use something like my pop 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 pops. Hi. Yeah. I would squeak a squeaky toy. Again, make kissy noises. Go back to those things that I said you could help you refocus your puppy, but you can utilize those to get your dog to come to you without using your name and without using your recall word. Again, these are just things that you want to sort of have in the back of your mind. Especially if you have a multi-person household, your puppy tends to hear the word come all the time. Think about what I said, poisoning that cue, hearing it so much, not getting the correct result, all that kind of stuff. So maybe think about just tabling that word for a little bit and just working on building name game, building that puppy's desire to listen to, high-pitched noises, hand clapping, things like that. So those are some of our guidelines for recall. And then next week, we're going to do all of our video segments on practicing the recall and fun ways we can get that dog engaged. So have a great weekend, and we'll see you later. Bye.